broad-hearted and open Christianity. I have often said, haven't I, that we are only at the beginning of our understanding and apprehension of Christ. For centuries, through to the 12th and 13th centuries, a Christianity existed whose faithful had no means of reading the Bible, who depended instead on sermons and on the teachings of inspired people. Then came a Christianity that stuck to the Bible, that drew its knowledge from the biblical texts. And we are unaware of the power of Christ if we do not recognize that his statement, quote, "I am with you always, unto the end of the ages," close quote, is something he made real. We are Christians if we recognize that Christ, after his first manifestation, will manifest again in every age for every person who wishes to see him. The Christ is not so poor that he says only the things recorded in the Gospels. We should not repeatedly cite the words, quote, "Ye cannot yet bear to hear it," close quote, but let humanity, rather, make itself mature enough to perceive the Christ. This will include becoming able to find the right stance toward what pours in through the Jordan baptism, toward the sound, fruitful powers of infancy. This would be a deep and fruitful germinal idea. Even if people did not know the name of Christ or anything of the Gospels, names are certainly not the primary thing to consider. What counts is the being and the reality. We can leave it to others to say that faithful adherence to a religion means invoking particular names. We adhere not to names, but to realities. And we do so, for instance, by discerning the powers at work in early childhood that once descended upon the body of Jesus of Nazareth. Imagine you lived on a lonely island where no news of the mystery of Golgotha had ever arrived. Nevertheless, if there were people living there who in their spiritual life and work absorbed the power of early infancy in full consciousness and cultivated it through into old age, they would still be Christians in the true sense of the word. Then there is no need to search in the Gospels, for Christianity becomes something living and will go on and on developing. This is a distinction we must keep clearly in mind, and then we will increasingly recognize how intimately, really, the Christ mission is connected with the whole nature of the earth. We will be able to see that this Christ mission is something that we can discern in the nature of modern humanity itself. The need for permeation by Christ, of living the Pauline saying, quote, "Christ in me," close quote, becomes apparent when we can acknowledge that we need to transform what lives in us in early childhood and pervade the whole of our life with it. Then the Christ is in us. This enables us to encompass Christianity in the broadest and most heartfelt sense, and gives us a perspective in which Christianity can assume quite different forms. Times will come when Christ will be called by a quite different name, when quite different sacred texts will exist, and when people will no longer refer at all to an outward history that recounts that Jesus of Nazareth once lived in such and such a place. Instead, through their consciousness of humanity, people will discern this reality. The science of the Spirit must become a living practice. Only then will we be able to understand what we find in historical documents. For many, the sacred texts are a book with 7 seals. Consider people today. By the end of Earth evolution, they will have reached the point of inwardly permeating their souls with Christ. But today, they are only at the beginning of this work. Yet Christ still lives in us, and through all our subsequent incarnations, he will increasingly live in us in an ever broader and deeper sense.